Well, hello and welcome. We have a treat for you today. My name is Sylvain, an educator with BERNINA, and with me is Fabian, another educator with BERNINA. Literally the last kid on the block, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Fabian just joined this past
Yep.
year, and you have a treat today because we're going to talk bernette 08 straight stitch machine, and you have experience working with high power, high speed machines, correct?
Yes, I do.
Cool. Fabian is a fashion designer, like runway fashion designer. So, you've encountered materials as well. I've seen some of your stuff, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll talk about that along the way. So what we want to do first is introduce you to the machine. This is the new B08 straight stitch machine from Bernette. It is high speed, high power. You might think heavy duty. It's what we call a prosumer machine between a domestic and an industrial. So let's do the tour quickly. It weighs 32 pounds. It has a handle. You can carry it. So it's very stable. It comes with the extension table. So you always have a big surface to work on. It can use combs. It can use regular spools of thread. And what I like is that you can have a dedicated path for the bobbin winding, which means that when you thread, you can leave your thread ready to wind the next bobbin on the top. And it's all guided separately from the thread that goes into the machine, right? And now, similar to what an industrial machine would do, when the thread enters the machine here, you have a pre-tensioner. That's not your real thread tension. It's just going to tame that thread. Some threads come off the spool with a coil, with a bit of a kink, especially heavy threads, right?
Yes.
Yeah, heavy threads are actually more unruly sometimes than finer threads. So that will just pass the thread here, and by the time it heads down to the tension assembly, this is an old-fashioned, tensional dial. So by the time you get down there, the thread is now on a smooth straightaway path. Then you go around this, back up to the take-up lever, back down to the needle area. There's two guys down there. And what I like is that when you get to the needle, you just pop down and engage, and it stays engaged, the needle threader. Then you pop your thread underneath here, and by the time you retract, you'll have a nice loop, about a centimeter and a half long, almost 3/4 of an inch, and then you pluck your thread, and you're good to go. Now, there are usability features also that come with the machine. For heavy threads, I mentioned like upholstery thread. Have you worked with upholstery thread?
Yes, I have.
Is that thick stuff that tends to loop on itself a little bit.
Yes.
If you're not careful, right?
Yeah.
So this here helps a lot at the pre-tensioner, but also right before, when you're coming back from the main tension unit, there's an extra tension guide here that is for heavy thread. There's a screw on it. And that little module, if you loosen the screw at the top, you can slide it further to the right on the machine. That will increase friction, which means it will tame that thread further before it goes into the take-up lever at the top. So that is, and if you put it all the way to the left, it would be for a little less friction. Regular threads, like your garment sewing thread, they don't need this. But the heavy upholstery type thread, buttonhole twist, I like the name buttonhole twist, because when you sew with that thread, right?
Yeah.
It twists.
It twists. Yeah.
So
it's in the name.
This will help control it. So basically, any kind of thread, you're good to go. Then you have a knee lift included with the machine, and it's adjustable. So you can adjust the angle in the front. It goes into the socket here, but you can adjust it based on the width of your legs and your position of seating. And then if you have the foot, you can park it up with a lever at the back. If you have the freehand system, it will disengage the foot and bring it down for you and hold it up while you push on the bar. And for extra lift, for very heavy project, if you take the lever at the back, you can actually raise the foot extra for the big heavy-duty stuff. So that is very good. I use the freehand system on my BERNINAs already, so to me, I'm crippled without it, right?
Yep.
And the foot control is nice and big, so you don't have to hunt for it. That's great. You put it on the floor, and you can. I've sewn with shoes, barefoot. Works great both ways. And then there's an option available. Is a secondary little foot control. It's smaller. It plugs into the machine, and this foot control would actuate the automatic cutter. And then if you use this accessory, then you can screw in 4 screws. The main foot control will attach to this, and the two will now live together on the same plate, basically. Whoop, actually it goes this way. And the two will now live together on the same plate. So you can sew and then swing your foot to the side to cut. So for people who do big jobs, like a lot of repeats of the same thing, this is pushing the machine to the productivity of an industrial. Right?
Exactly.
It is not an industrial machine. It's between a domestic and that, but the usability tools are there. Now, to finish the front, you have speed, you have power, you need good controls, to make sure that you don't burn rubber on the road, right? So at the top here, you have a needle up and down button, and if you press it, there's a diode that lights up. The machine would now stop down. The triangle points down. It's red for down, green for up, nice and easy. And even if you cut the thread, the machine will remember to stop down the next time. So that is a nice feature to have on the machine. Then you can wind bobbins. Whoops, sorry, I'm looking upside down right now. Yeah. You can wind bobbins, and then when you engage the bobbin winder, if you push that button here, the winder starts running until it fills the bobbin, and you are good to go. So I'm going to close that. And then you have a slide speed control also on the machine so that you can sew slow, and you can sew all the way to how long? How fast? 1600
stitches.
Yeah, 1600 stitches a minute. That is fast. Our fastest domestic machine goes to 1200, and that's already fast.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do big projects, let's say you do curtains and you do awnings and stuff like that, long seams, you can get those done in a very short amount of time. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's for the basic tour. The bobbin is at the end here, at the end of the machine. And to get to it, it's nice and easy. It's just a cover plate that is snapped in place, so no tools required. And then you have, it's closed if you don't use the extension table. But for me, when I sew, little tip, I leave that open so it's easier because this will cover up the opening and you are good to sew.
Right. Yeah.
You have a ruler in the front, bilingual. It's got metric and medieval units, inches and centimeters, so you can actually measure your project as you go. And there's even the traditional holes on the top here if you need to attach accessories. Okay. So there's also optional accessories available, right?
Yes, there are.
So there's a whole bunch of presser feet available all individually. So you don't need to buy kits. But if you do quilting, let's do the quilting one. So I believe that is this one. So let's open that up. If you have the quilting set, you'll see, let's put it here. You'll see that there is a whole bunch of accessories in there. Let's put it up. There is a thicker stitch plate available so that when you put that on instead of the regular one, the feed dogs no longer reach the surface, so you can now do free motion. And then there is a base foot for free motion, and that foot allows you to change the soles. So you have ruler work, you have regular stippling, closed loop, and you have open toe stippling foot. And then there is a 1/4-inch piecing foot with guide, and the guide is removable. So it comes with a guide in case you want it. And then if you don't need the guide, you can just unscrew it and take it off.
Yep.
And then you have a 1/4-inch foot without guide, which a lot of people prefer. And then there's one more. There is a center, like an edge stitch for like stitching the ditch. It will help guide your seams. So it's like a whole package. All your quilting tools are covered there. Then the other set is, go ahead.
Okay.
Got it. Is for what we call DIY general sewing. So
hopefully this don't fall.
Yeah, there's a seam guide, and I'll come back to that one. There's a stitch plate here that has a super fine hole, like a very tiny hole. So if you're sewing things like chiffon, Chalmers, you've sewn some of that stuff, right?
Oh yeah. This definitely helps because then your fabric doesn't get sucked down into the machine.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it loves to go down the hole, the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
So you use a fine needle, you use that plate, and your fabric no longer sinks in. Then you have a variety of feet here. There's a non-stick foot. There is, let's see what we got. We got a little hammer. A rolled hammer. We have a binder foot. We have a leather roller foot, right?
Oh yeah.
And again, all of this is available individually. But if you want the set, there's a zipper foot. So there's a whole variety here for general sewing purposes. So people who make garments would use pretty much all of this on a regular basis.
Yes, they would.
Yeah. Anything from Hong Kong finish to regular seaming to going around curves or leather, faux leather, that kind of thing. So the kits are available separately, and the shoes make the outfit. The presser foot is very important for the machine.
Yep.
So now that we've covered the base of the machine, it's fast, it's powerful, it's easy to control, it's really convivial. It's a really good package. What would be your number 1, 2, and 3 tips on leveraging a machine like that? Because you've worked you're working under pressure for fashion shows.
Oh yeah. When you have 9 months to bust out a collection, every minute counts. So having a machine like this, if you're on a tight deadline or something like that, you can get through something in no time at all.
Or if you let the deadline approach too fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
For my quilts, it's been like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
yeah.
would be your number one tip on handling a machine like this?
I would say number one would be using the correct needle. So for this machine, there's a special high-speed needle. That's the HLX5 needle.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be able to accommodate exactly that, sewing at high speeds. I'm pretty sure you can get these in the standard sizes that you would any other needle.
Yeah.
And also just so we're clear, you can't use a needle that you would use like on a domestic Bernina machine on this one.
You must use an HLX5. I call them HL/5, right?
Yeah.
We include an assortment with the machine, which the sizes are like 70, 75, and 90, and 100. The high-speed needle, HL/5, has a slender shaft, but it's actually strong, and it has a slightly tapered, rounded point, just tiny, a little bit rounded on the point. So it reduces friction as it goes through materials.
Yes.
And at high speed, friction generates heat. It can generate heat really fast. So this reduces the heat potential, which with synthetic threads will help, the seam flow without issues. There are also other, Schmetz makes the Bernina needles for this. And so the Schmetz needles will have an HL/5, but there's also organ needles that come with titanium oxide coating. So for stronger, if you're doing heavy duty, I've done, like you saw the drill cloth, right?
Yes.
It looked like wood when we were done, right?
Yeah.
I use a second heaviest drill cloth, 21 ounce, and we did 8 layers, and you cannot bend it when it's sewn together. So I sewed this with the 100 needles, and it was like butter. And the machine did not, even stitch by stitch, or 1,600 stitches a minute.
Yeah.
It didn't care.
Yeah.
The machine just went right through it. The key is the needle here. So what's your number 2?
Number 2 is threading. So I know for me, when I sat down at this machine and immediately started threading it, it felt familiar coming from an industrial machine standpoint. But if you don't come from that background like I do, it's pretty simple to thread. You just have to make sure that you're getting all of the correct thread guides. Always thread with your presser foot up, because then your tension guides won't be able to receive the thread properly, and that will translate into having stitch problems and tension problems potentially. One major tip that I can offer is, once you get through the whole process of threading and your presser foot is up, you can actually floss the thread. So if you grab the thread from up top and then from the needle and just kind of give it a
let me put the needle up right there.
Let's see. So if you grab your needle thread and the thread up top and you just kind of give it a floss,
the needle will flex just a hair. That tells you that your thread is through the whole path. And then you're good to go.
Yep, you'll pass your thread under the foot and you can get sewing.
Threading is everything.
Yep,
right?
It's everything.
Yep. And then what would be your third tip?
Third tip would be stitch length. So going from fabric to fabric, especially as a garment sewer, your stitch length will definitely vary. So if you're working on a regular woven fabric, you may use a 2.5, 3. If you're like me and you sew a lot of leather and vinyl and tricky stuff like that, I usually use a 3 or even a 3.5 in certain instances. It just really depends on the thickness of your fabric. So if you're working with a really thick leather and you're making a bag, you may want to go up to a 4 or a 4.5 in some instances. So
there's an old expression in sewing, like feed the seam. The thicker the project base, the materials, the longer the stitch needs to be.
Yeah.
And I did realize with this machine that for the thread to lay down properly between the stitches, if it gets thicker, you need a longer stitch.
Yeah.
But also, if the thread gets thicker, like upholstery thread, that also calls for lengthening the stitch.
Oh yeah.
Even if the material was not that heavy.
Yeah.
Because that thread needs a little elbow room, literally, or it likes to twist. That's why there's an extra guide here. And the manual, by the way, I edited the manual with the Swiss team, and the manual, they use the CAD drawings. That's very well done. There's quick start guide that comes in the box, the manual you can download. I like to put the manual on my big tablet because it's searchable. It's a PDF, as opposed to leafing through the paper. You can actually just search much faster. And also, the quick start guide actually is all you would need to operate the machine. It's all the graphics are. Basically the computerized graphics that were made to make that machine. So it's very accurate.
It's true.
So that's very good. So I have some tips too, because I've worked mostly with domestic machines, but when I started sewing, I was a DIY gear maker. It's kind of popular now. There's a resurgence. And it's funny because, it's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Like when I was your age, I was a maker. I wanted a machine like this. I didn't have one. I got a
Yeah.
garage sale plunker. Oh God,
Oh,
I wish I'd had this. So the productivity is there. So for me,
Yeah.
the first thing is we talked about the stitch, the
Mhm.
stitch length and all that.
Right.
Once you have the needle, your thread is in there, and you know your ballpark tension. Then to me, the key is testing. Especially if you're going to launch at 1600 stitches a minute eventually. You don't have to sew that fast. You can sew slow. But if you know you're going to take advantage of the speed, your settings need to be spot on, before you hit the gas.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I will test on representative scraps of the material. If you're going to attach straps to a bag, a faux leather or real leather
Yeah.
bag, you're going to have 4, 6, 8 layers, right?
Yeah, always test the maximum amount of
And the
layers.
straps sometimes are tri-folded, right? So that's already 3. So and then you may have 3 or 4 already on the bag. So it's 7 layers. You run through this. You just run through a little bit, and if the stitch length and the stitch looks good when you're done, you're good to go. And also important, or especially on fabric, not so much leather, but on fabrics, if you're gonna do like hemming and all that, anything on the cross grain or the bias, make sure you test. I left one feature out. I had to leave, cherry on top, literally. There's presser foot pressure adjustment.
That's a huge.
When you put it all the way down to the big numbers, like goes all, the scale goes down there when you press more. But when you put the higher numbers, it is bearing down on that fabric. That chiffon, that charmeuse, that ripstop nylon, it is not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
It is going to stay put. And then if something is prone to stretching, you like knits, you can ease up so you don't stretch your material. Right. So good feature, works very well. And I was impressed by the range. It goes from very light to like really down and hard on it. Right. So that's good. So testing your settings is now that's any sewing machine. As I say, when I made garments, it's not like I was a snob, but really it was silk, linen, or cotton, natural fibers. And on silk especially, you don't want to damage your silk, right? It's expensive. So I always test first. Number 2 for me would be make sure you use the extension table, even if you have a domestic machine. You don't want to camp. This is a flat bed, which is a nice surface. If you could not bring the table with you, you still have a very decent surface to work on, and it's metal. So that's great. But the table basically quadruples your workspace. And if you have a big project, think curtains, and the stuff that requires long seams. This means that you can lay it flat and it goes through at high speed. It's not trying to veer on you, right? So you can keep your speed going and not have to wrangle with the beast. And then my third one is press a feet. A sewing machine is only as good as the needle and the foot you put on. At the stitch point, it's the press foot that governs the fabric. Right? Not your hands. Your hands should not be there. Not at 1600 stitches a minute. Okay. So at that point, you do a roll hammer. You're doing anything like this, anything that will manipulate the fabric along the way. You make sure your hands are not there, that the foot is the right foot to do the job. You're doing. You remember that red kind of coat dress that you did? It's not latex. It's a vinyl, right?
It's vinyl.
It's amazing. It's vinyl. Red. It's vinyl. It's shiny. I look at first time I look at that, I said, "Oh, sticky."
Yeah, it's usually a material that's very tricky to work with.
So there's a non-stick foot available. You can just get singly, or you can get part of the kit, right? So that's really, really good. So that's really the scoop on the machine. I'm sure we have questions. How heavy thread can you use? What have you tried so far?
Honestly, just home deck. Top stitch. Yeah.
I went to a store where they sold threads, and I bought one of everything. So upholstery thread, and thread. Unfortunately, there's I think 8 different systems to measure threads. Density, weight, thickness, and all that. It's a zoo and a jungle. So I tried upholstery thread. It's called upholstery. I've tried buttonhole twist. Basically, TEX is the typical numbering system, right, for the heavy stuff, where we use weights for household garment sewing stuff, right? So garment sewing stuff up to about 30 weight, 28 weight, you deal with the machine like it's a regular thread. You don't need that special threading side and all that. Then the text numbers, you get into 75, 90, and 100. I put some of that on the machine, 8 layers of that heavy drill cloth, and I had to lengthen the stitch because of the material and the thread. I went to a stitch length of about 4.5, and it was butter. Literally,
Yeah,
that was right.
yeah.
The needle needs to grow, the needle to bump up, right? The
Mhm,
size.
mhm.
And when I got to the heavy layers like this, I tried the titanium needle, and that helped as well.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So, I mean, if you're doing 4-6 layers of leather, unless if it's hardened belt leather,
yeah. It really
leather's not
depends on
hard,
the
right?
It depends on the thickness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drill cloth is you need a drill.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
why they call it that. You
Yeah.
need a drill. That stuff is hard. And when you make a note that when you do heavy materials, whenever you roll material, like a seam and edge,
Mhm.
it tenses the fibers all around the roll here.
Yep.
So it actually gets tougher. It tightens up. So the same material is, you have 2 layers, it may be 3 or 4 times harder than the single layer.
Yeah.
There's a scale that goes up there.
Mhm.
So that was for that. What's the next question? What's the maximum needle size you can use? What I've seen so far is 100. And
Mhm.
that went through the drill cloth like it
Yeah.
was butter. So, and even the machine would do it. Oh, I would do it at slow speed. I forgot to mention it has a DC motor.
Oh,
The
yeah.
old AC motors. Remember? Have you worked with AC motors?
Yeah.
You know what I call them?
What?
Growlers.
Growlers.
Because
Yeah.
when you go slow, they
Yep.
growl,
Yeah.
and they don't have
yeah.
power until you floor the pedal,
Floor it.
right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
DC motors, what you have on electronic machines, like computerized machines, and
Mhm.
this is a metal beast. It has a ball bearing main shaft, which means it can go faster and quieter. But the motor is controlled. So DC motors is like your food processor motor. When you push the go button, it's instant on and it's full power
Yep.
from 0 to full power in like a nanosecond. So this thing can take off on you, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was for so the needle size and the motor power helps with that. And actually, going back to power, with the right needle, like a big needle for the heavy stuff, I am able to go stitch by stitch. So I never run over the end of my seam. When you have a cross seam coming up, or
Mhm.
you want to stop ahead, you
Yeah.
can go one stitch at a time, even with a slider full up. So you can go from very, very slow, deliberate stitching to
Mhm.
full speed. You have complete control
Yep.
the whole time.
Yep.
Okay, question for you. Does the machine have a reverse stitch? So there's a reverse lever,
Yep.
right? Now, this is a straight stitch forward only. So, if you think triple stitch, no, this is a forward only machine. The price to pay for a machine that would drop the feed dog or do the reverse stuff, there's more mechanism down under there. Then to do this, the machine would drop down to 15, 14, 12, 1,000 stitches a minute.
Mhm.
Now, domestic Berninas now do, we have some that do 1,200 stitches a minute. And that's faster than what most people want to sew at,
Yeah.
right? But to get to this high speed, you have a standard mechanism that does not drop, does not deviate, it stays put, so that it can it's like a Formula One car. They
Yep.
don't have reverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this has a reverse, reverse lever here, which is nice and big, so that your whole hand, I put my hand like this when I call it smack it down.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's linked to the stitch length. When you change your stitch length, it's a direct link, direct drive. So when you do this, it's literally pushing the cam in reverse, and you can secure your stitches that way. Okay. All right. So, by the way, we're going to do support videos on this, right? We had a chat last week on, okay, what are the tips that we can give, like with visual explanations. So the parent company in Switzerland is producing videos already for how to thread, how to do this, how to change presser foot, that good stuff, right? And then we're adding videos on tips, how to take advantage of the machine, because it has its own advantages. And then we're going to keep, based on questions we receive, we're going to keep adding. So this machine is very well supported already. Bernette USA on Instagram, on social media, will have content, including videos and posts. And we have people who will be using this machine in the field. So you'll be getting ideas of what it does. If you're in the market for a machine, you want productivity. This, by the way, is a darling of bag makers. Have you made bags?
I've made a few.
What would you say are the trickiest parts of bags?
I would say sometimes that final top stitching around the outside, because your layers kind of deviate sometimes. But with a machine like this, it makes it easy because you just toggle with your presser foot control, your presser foot pressure control along with your stitch length, and it makes it super easy.
Yeah. And if you end up adding layers because you're top stitching, you could bump your needle size up, right?
Oh yeah.
If need be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Because you can go up to 100.
Yeah,
so,
and we did one of the tip videos on faux leather, but we did 4 layers, 8 layers, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I lengthened the stitch and with the upholstery thread.
Yep.
I like upholstery thread for bags because it's got that, you know, that texture to it at the same time. It's, you know, it's a heavy thread, so
Yeah.
I like the thread to show, right? That thread is my my thing, right? So that would be that. Next question. I'm trying to read for the bottom here. Okay, would this machine be good to make your own outdoor gear? My answer in French is heck yes.
Yeah.
This machine is perfect for that. It goes fast. You know, you do like even you know, you need to mend a tent or add a panel or whatever you want to do, you know, a shroud for your second layer. This will go through the lengths like it's nothing. And you know, I've tried ripstop nylon. It just goes to town. You do taut sewing, and you're approaching an industrial. But the nice thing is that even people who have a cottage industry, for instance, you know, they do, let's say, curtains, home decks, stuff like that. You can do a lot of stuff on the industrial, right? But when it's time to hang curtains, for instance, they will not. You never hang the curtains before you hang them. Right, you need to measure in place. The house may be crooked, especially those beautiful old Victorians, where they do the big curtains, right? So what you do is you take the curtains there, you place them. Then when it's time to actually stitch them, then something like this has a handle. It's portable. You don't need to tear down your main setup. And if you want to do gear, I came from gear. One of the first things I ever made was a carrier for the wood stove on oiled canvas that I bought as remnants. And when you got to put the handles on this, it was like 6-8 layers of oil canvas. And a machine like this will just cruise right through this. Now, domestic can do it, but if you do a lot of gear, this just makes it easier. One little thing is that we include 2 feet right off the bat with the machine. Right, one is the regular foot, you know, the smaller toe, bigger toe, right? The standard matches the feed dog. The other one is the ultra narrow. Actually, we have it here. I'll pull it up. We have the ultra narrow presser foot, which means that foot people use it to edge zippers.
Yes, that's a really good presser foot to have. Some people use it for
top stitching.
Yeah,
it's really good. So I'm going to pull this out. And can you talk about the bobbins?
Oh yeah, so this machine has a jumbo bobbin, and usually
40%, right?
40% more thread, so you don't have to keep rewinding
bobbins all the time.
Yeah.
Let's
see if you can.
They're metal, which means that high speed they don't deform, right? They can take because there's friction on the thread in the bobbin, right?
Yep.
So being metal, they stay put. They're lightweight. They don't interfere. And we found that if you put heavy thread in the bobbin, like the upholstery thread, you still fit quite a lot because it's 40% more than a standard bobbin. And I had no tension balance issues with heavy thread in the bobbin. And then this is the ultra narrow foot. I'll put it in front here, see if we can show it. This one, right? This one?
Yeah.
So see how narrow that is? It's like a fraction of the other one. So people love that one for edge stitching right near zippers.
Yeah, I've seen people use it even just for regular sewing too.
Yeah, for the delicate stuff.
Yeah.
So that one is included. So, you know, it's good. It gives you the options. And then all the other feet. There's even a walking foot available.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, you know, there's a velvet foot. When I saw that, I said, oh, that's different. That's different.
That's different. Yeah.
It basically helps prevent crushing and scarring the velvet as you sew it. So that's a great feature. Let's look at for questions. Would you be able to sew them up? Yep, got that. How is the motor different from a domestic machine? Okay, so the motor, this machine is it's on a weight comparable to a 7 or 8 series Bernina. The motor is in a similar range. The domestic Berninas are special, right? They have like the back kick. You can program that because these machines, you know, like the 8 series, the 790 Pro Plus Pro, and the 8 series and the 9 series, they sew sideways. It's pretty amazing. But for I want to say straight like an arrow, like straight stitch sewing, this is boiled down, and the DC motor on this is very, very powerful. So it's built really for the use it's intended for, and it is. I've had it doesn't even feel warm after running. Running like a wear batch. So it's really designed for that kind of work. So if you do a lot of like long seams and heavy duty sewing, and you have a fancy domestic machine, this can take the weight off the other, and then you can use a fancy machine for the fancy like decorative stitches and all that good stuff. Right? Yeah. So let's see here. What else we got? It comes, of course, with all the accessories. There's one thing I just spotted that I forgot to mention, but I still forgot to mention it. That's okay. So let's go back to the question. How much space to the right of the needle? It's 8.8 inches, so almost 9 inches. So that's a good size. And if you want to quilt with this, like free motion, It's not a long arm, but again, it goes fast. You know, it's approaching long arm territory. Our baby long arm, the Q16, goes 2,000 stitches a minute, right? So you can take the machine, and instead of having it facing you, like if you're sitting in the machine right now, you'd be looking at this. No, put the machine so it's this way, so that the end here, where the needle is facing you directly. So then it's in a position more like a long arm. You still can have the table if you want, and then work with that, or take the table off and just use the bed, or sink it down. But you have a surface, you can actually use this as a stippling machine if you want. And we have the feet for that. The stippling feet have 3 different soles that attach, so you can actually change the type of stippling you do with it. Yeah. Let's see. Can I wind a bobbin while I'm sewing?
Yes, you can.
You like to bring the good news, right?
Yeah, because the bobbin winder on this machine is independent from the sewing, so you can wind a bobbin while you're sewing.
You engage the bobbin winder, and then when you push the button here, it starts winding. So you probably can't hear it right now. I would have to put my microphone nearby, but it's winding. When it's full, it will stop, and that's it. You don't need to disengage here. So it will wind while you sew. There's a separate thread path completely for the bobbin thread, so you do not have to stop sewing to wind a bobbin. So if you, and people who do big sewing, big jobs, typically they'll have like 2 spools, right? So one can be on the bobbin winder duty, the other one is on the sewing duty, and then you can keep going. So this machine is really fine-tuned for productivity. And again, it's a darling. There's a lot of, every store, we have like our customers, BERNINA stores. We have about 450 or so across the country, and they're all teaching more and more bag classes, right? And I don't mean just cotton bags. I mean canvas. I mean, when I make a tote bag, you could put rocks in it until you can't pick it up. Like, it's got to be sturdy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just made a prototype bag.
Oh yes, I did. We did like a little handbag, and it was made out of leather that had fusing on it, which was really thick too. And then we just pretty much pieced it on the machine, gave it a good top stitch around the top, and it went through the fabric and all those layers like butter. Yeah, it's very good.
You said that, it made me think, like fashion designers, they use crazy stuff. I love it. They like, you maybe not put 2 and 2 together, they'll do it. But then that goes back to cosplay, which is,
absolutely
gaining in popularity, right? And cosplay is, I came from a garment construction background, and cosplay to me is like, people do costume departments in theater, for instance. To me, that is the epitome of sewing. That you will encounter crazy stuff, and so a machine like this is perfect for like cosplayers, because it will, you want to attach vinyl to leather to silk to whatever, to plastic plates. If the needle can handle the piercing of the material, the machine does not have a problem whatsoever doing it. So it's, and those HL by 5 needles are actually strong. They have a strong shank, so they actually very good for that. It's really a darling for that kind of stuff. Okay, I saw some more questions popping. Is there lighting on the machine?
Yes, there is.
LED lighting, nice and and you see how bright that is. Let me turn it off just so you see the difference. Now we have room lighting, a lot of room lighting right now, but you see that's without. That's with. That's how bright it is. There's lighting here and lighting at the needle. So both your work and your stitching are well lit. Yeah. So that's and that again is the LEDs. That is because you have DC power running through the machine. They're able to put on the LEDs. So that's great. Can you use pre-wound bobbins? There, I want to say I don't think so, because it's 40% more. So first, would you like to shortchange yourself 40%?
No, absolutely not.
Ask any sewist, would you like smaller bobbins? I'm going to go, no. And that, so it's its own bobbin, because to go on to get the 40% capacity, which give me that any day, right? So in that case, you want to, but the winder is separate. You can literally be winding while you sew. So there's no more downtime. You set your bobbin to wind. By the time you put your first piece of fabric through, the bobbin will be full. So literally, there's no downtime for winding bobbin. I tell you, it's very well packaged, and actually, maintenance, right?
Maintenance is that's a huge one.
So you saw this opens up easily, right? This comes off, the bobbin comes out of there. You brush that out. So basically, at the hook, there is an oiling point, like every machine, right on the bottom of the hook, and then on the end of the shaft here, there is a little pad that drop one drop of oil. And there's 2 little holes on the top of the machine, one here, one there. You drop a drop of oil in there. Now make a note. There is a wick, to direct the oil to the right spot from the hole so that you don't have to open something and then find the spot and, hunt for it. You just drop the drop there and the wick will take it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens is that the wick will swell a little bit when you first wet it with the oil. So if you see a wick peeking a little bit, not at the top, but in the hole, don't remove it thinking it's lint.
Yeah.
So, I know my mother was not a neat, she was a neat freak. She did house cleanings for a living, right? So if she saw something like that, she would at least check it out. So this, you'll see the wicks, which makes your life easy.
Mm-hmm.
You just drop a drop and it comes with the oil. Yep. It has its own oil. Remember, if you drive a car or a tractor, you buy different motor oil, right? So for a sewing machine like this has its own oil. It's OP-8J. Don't ask me what that means, but it's the right weight of oil. So your local store will be stocking that oil. You don't need much. That little bottle will last you a long time. So you're good to go there. So make sure you clean because especially when fuzz, you sew, let's say on flannel or felt or stuff like that, fibers that break loose from the fabric will tend to gum up the feed dog a little bit, right? They tend to stay between the teeth. When that happens, it's like your snow tires. I come from Canada. Did you know?
Yeah.
So it's like your snow tires in winter when they pack with snow.
Mm-hmm.
You lose traction.
Right.
So your feed dog would lose efficiency if it gets fuzzy. So you use the brush, and you can unscrew the plate, take it off, and clean that up. That's really all you have to do to clean for yourself for the machine, the regular maintenance. Clean here and oil the 4 points, and you are good to go. And I found that the oil is more viscous than the domestic sewing machine oil. Bernina has very, very, very thin oil, which means it never gums the machine. But this has a more viscous because at high speed, the oil heats up a little bit and it stays put in the mechanism and you get good performance. And again, this has a ball bearing main shaft. This machine competes with about a half a dozen models that have 1,500 stitches a minute. What this brings that's a bit different is because of the ball bearing shaft, it's able to go faster by 100 stitches a minute. So you don't always need that, but if you need the speed, you get it. And then it's also a bit quieter, and ball bearings are long-lived compared to like an oiled bushing, a sintered bushing, they call it. So there's nothing wrong with the sintered bushing. This is just more hardcore if you want, harder at the core. And it will give you performance. And it's a bit quieter that way too. So love that. And because the ball bearings are very responsive, that means that the electronic speed control, you'll notice the machine is very snappy, like on the dot, right? That was more snappy than I expected. I expected good, but I got really, really good there. So can you use pre-wound bobbins? No, we answered that. What is the max stitch length? Pop quiz, do you remember?
I think it's like 6.
Yes.
Yeah, 6.
That boy remembers.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because we use so many machines. We're like, okay, who are you today, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So 6 millimeters, which is, that's pretty long. And it goes all the way down to 0, or 1 or half. A little tip, when I use heavy threads, if I need to secure at the end, if I can, not always possible, but what I'll do is I'll reduce my, let's say my stitch length was 5, so like upholstery type thread, right? I will reduce my stitch length by half. And then I would back up like 2 or 3, 4 stitches. It will blend with the existing stitches without creating that big thick ridge.
Right. Yeah.
Because the shorter stitches will be tighter there. So if I can, I will kind of try to sneak in or kind of tuck them in. It's a better word at the end. So, and it will do that. It will actually do a short stitch with a heavy thread. It's just that for best results, typically heavy thread, heavy fab material, longer stitch, right?
Yeah.
Go. So what is your favorite feature of the machine?
I would say the foot control, because one side you sew with, and then when you're done, you can cut your thread on the other side of it. For me, it's just really helpful, just because sometimes you don't have an extra hand to reach over and touch the scissor, and you just need to get out and go.
The thread cutter button is right here. It's nice and easy, but sometimes your hands need to stay on. And actually, that's a bit of a Bernina bias because we call it the freehand system because on a Bernina you don't have to take your hands off. Well, this is pretty much there because you have the freehand system here, the knee lifter. Then you have it's an extra accessory, but you can add the foot control for cutting in that way. Now, my momentary episode of cerebral flatulence is over. The moment passed. I remember what I always wanted to tell you. The needle threader, it's in the manual. It works on regular weight threads, just to about 30 weight and 28 weight, right? When you get to upholstery threads and Tex 100, like outdoor thread, those threads, they're meant not to abrade, not to fray, not to come untwisted and basically break off. Yeah, they're very, very sturdy.
Yeah.
They don't cut. So the manual will tell you heavy duty threads like upholstery, what you would use to fix like the canvas boat covers on your boat. You don't use the automatic cutter for that. But then if you've sewn projects like that, you know that what you do is you knee lift the foot, open up the tension, right, on the front, then pull your project out and snip close, right? And then you keep your tails for the next one. So actually it does work because, for that kind of project with the heavy threads, you don't want to cut, have thread tails and have to go back and wrangle the whatever the big thing is, right, to get to snip those threads close. So you just do it at first. So for this, I would take out. I don't use them on my Berninas because I don't really use the upholstery thread that often there. But we have the thread cutter. There's a thread cutter on the outside. Actually, you can still use that. But I would. I used to have those little industrial thread snips. I have like 3 sets of those. I haven't used them in a long time. I took them out, and it brought back good memories. Like productivity and snip close.
Yeah.
What do we have? Can you show the presser fit included in each set? Yes, let's do that. So you want to start?
Sure.
You're gonna do what? You're gonna do that's up your alley, the DIY.
Yeah. This one.
So just take them out one by one and just show them here.
Okay. So this is the DIY sewing kit. So I'll start with my favorite one. So you have a non-stick foot.
Let's do it here. Yeah. Non-stick foot, which is like a white a very glide, almost like a solid Teflon, right?
Yeah. It's also called a Teflon foot. I've heard in other places, but this foot is perfect for
put
sewing.
It on the plate so you see better. See that?
Yeah. So if you're sewing anything sticky or like leather, this will help you glide right over that
material.
Fabric. Yep.
Yeah.
And then we also have
This is the straight stitch foot for like finer fabrics.
Yep. And then you'll use that in conjunction with the needle plate.
This needle plate has even smaller hole in the center of the front. So it's a straight stitch but smaller hole. That way the fabric can go in there. So, and again, you at 6, if you go fast, which you can, when you do trains, that's on fancy dresses.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you have miles and miles to go. You can go and literally it's going to do the job.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then we have this adjustable zipper foot, which I really love. So
now,
hopefully it doesn't.
Yes, this is the zipper foot, and it's adjustable. You can swing it one side to the other, and you have the usual 2 needle positions there on the front of the foot. Let me do that.
Yeah, you can use this for your zippers, or if you're trying to stitch somewhere that's kind of hard to get to with your regular foot, this works really well for that.
And you notice that the feet all have, it looks like a high shank, right? Yeah. The screwdriver comes, of course, for the feet. And the shanks are very sturdy. There's some industrial DNA that,
Oh, yeah. If you look, they're very similar.
This is
the invisible zipper foot.
Yes, yes.
So obviously you'll use this to put in all your invisible zippers, and it just helps you make sure that you're being accurate.
And I look at it, the base is aluminum, and it's very well machined. Yeah.
Yep. And then we also have the leather roller foot.
Yes, which we use for all sorts of things. But leather roller foot, and it's adjustable. So it is adjustable. You loosen the screws on the back, and then you'll be able to. So it's 2 screws, and then you can slide this and position it the way you want. Usually, you want this close to the needle, and it's just your wheel that goes right on. So if you do gloves, cosplayers, hello, you do gloves. Feet like this would develop to go and sew the tight curves around fingers. And you know that this one is easy to turn with a regular foot because it's an inside curve. But when you get to here, I call it a roller coaster.
Yeah.
If you go too fast when you sew, you don't have the roller foot. You go, whee, whoops.
Yeah. I made one pair of gloves one time, and it was very tricky with a regular foot.
This is a binder. And you can use this to actually speed up like bindings.
Yep. So if you want to do those Hong Kong seam finishes on the inside of a coat or something, you'll be able to do it.
It's adjustable. It is in millimeters because the rest of the world is.
Yep.
But actually, if you remember that there are 25 millimeters to an inch, and an eighth of an inch is 3 millimeters, and a quarter inch is roughly 6. You are good to go with that.
And then we have the narrow hammer foot.
Yeah, the narrow hammer foot. So that's good for edging bottom of a lot of
delicate fabrics. Yeah.
And even lightweight cottons.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So and then all the feet fit in their base. Now the quilting set. The quilting set has. Let me clean up the surface here. Notice how fast it is to close that up. That's it. All right. we have a seam guide that attaches to the machine, and then that will that's variable both in front and in depth and side, so you can actually adjust it, and then this attaches to the back here, and where the presser foot is attached on the back of the machine, this basically piggybacks on the foot itself, and then you replace the screw, and you've got yourself a seam guide. That's great. Then you have the free motion, the stippling foot. And the stippling foot, this is the, can we see? Yes, we can see here, right there, right? So this is the closed loop one, which is pretty standard. And if you take that little screw at the back here off, then this whole bottom module comes off. It's basically a replaceable sole. It doesn't look like a sole, but it's a replaceable sole. And then we have replacement soles. We have the roller work one, right?
Right.
We have an open toe stippling sole. So, and it has the raised, little raised toes so that it won't jab into your quilt sandwich. And then we have another open toe, the other side, right? Depending which way you want to approach it. So we have kind of a symmetric ones. So if you're stippling from this end of the machine, right? If you're sitting here, then you can use the foot angle one way versus the other, right? Then we have a 1/4 inch foot with guide. So this is your good old 1/4 inch foot, and it has, let's see here, it has the notches in the metal you have the needle position, and then you have a notch in front at a 1/4 inch. So if you need to turn a 1/4 inch corner, you can. And then we have one that looks very similar, but it has the guide. And again, the guide on this is removable. You unscrew the little screw at the back here, what I would call on the shoulder. And then you basically take that guide off. And if you don't want to use the guide, you can reserve it and keep it, but you have both options. I've a little suggestion this foot. I use a 1/4 inch foot like this with guide. We have a 57 on Bernina, right?
Right.
So I use this when I want to do, like even on the shoulder seam, if I want to do a 1/4 inch top stitch, I follow the seam ditch with this, and then I stitch a 1/4 inch away. So I use this as a top stitching foot in some circumstances. And then this is very similar foot, but this one has the guide in the middle. That's your stitch in the ditch foot. That one I would not take the guide off.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's your stitch in the ditch. And then there is a thicker plate. Give me your plate that you had from the other one. Well, you'll see the difference in between the plates. So this is, I'm going to put the flat sides together. Do you see how thick this one is compared? See, it's twice the thick. This is twice the thickness of the other. This is way thicker than that one. So that one, when you put it on, the feed dog no longer reaches the top. So you glide over. Remember, you can't drop the feed dog, because the price to pay for a high-speed machine is to not have all that extra mechanism down there.
Right.
So that's for the BO8. Let's see a couple of more questions. How much time do we have left? 12:40? We're good. All right. So is there a cover for the machine? Well, funny you ask. So my eager assistant, Randy, is bringing who's the prop man today. Guess what? There is a cover. There'll be a cover for the machine. One good project I like to, as a christening, right, for a machine like this, if it's going to stay out, is I make just not necessarily an enclosed cover, but a wrap over cover. Right. This will come down, and then you can put just a wrap cover, like a dust cover. But they're straight seams, and this is just enough seaming to get the feel for the machine, right? I don't make it complicated. I don't make it cute. That's for the domestic machines. Right. Right. But I'll make it simple and then just drape it over, and that's just enough to get the feel for the thread cutter, the motor,
Get to know
the
your
slow, the
machine.
fast. And if I do just enough, I'll rewind a second bobbin while I sew. Right? I get to experience everything without making it complicated. So let's see. We had a maximum stitch length. I think we ran out of questions for now. So,
is it considered a high shank machine?
that I would have to check. It looks to me like a high shank, but it has its own feet. So, that I would. Most machines like this, like if you get into a line of industrial machines, they may have similar feet. But from one brand, line of machine, let's say industrial, from consumer machines, they are different feet oftentimes. So I would make sure you check genuine feet first, because they were engineered. The feet themselves were engineered to work with the whole machine, right? Not you don't have to fudge that way. But I would have to check on the shank, because frankly, from the variety of feet available, and apart from these two sets, I've seen the walking foot, the velvet foot. There's
Yeah.
other feet available. So pretty much all the bases were covered.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's last thing. What's the first thing you want to make with it?
A leather jacket.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I see this and I see canvas. So,
Oh, yeah.
and I want to make like corded piping, heavy canvas, pillow for the couch because I don't get to use it.
Mhm.
It's okay, it's canvas because my cat gets to use
Yeah.
it. So, and it gets washed often. So that
Mhm.
will be, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece kind of crazy piecing with canvas, different colors.
Mhm.
You know, and I have drill cloth. So
Oh, wow.
I want to
Yeah.
use that as a
Yeah.
practice piece and
Uh-huh.
then make something out of it. Either that or a bag, but I have a lot of bags now. So I'll
Yeah.
probably be like a big oversized pillow.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the Bernette 08 straight stitch machine. It is fast, it's powerful, it's very capable. It will handle the finest materials and threads all the way to the heaviest threads. So before we part, we have a thank you voucher that's good for up to $100 rebate on the purchase of a new Bernina or Bernette machine. Not necessarily this model, but highly encouraged.
Yes.
And then you can download the voucher and receive the rebate. So basically, you can visit shop.berninausa.com/Bernette08, number 0, number 8. So again, shop.bernina. No, sorry. Let's do that. Bernina, right? Everything Bernina.
Yeah.
Shop.berninausa.com/Bernette08. So thank you, Fabian.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to see that jacket when it's done.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We will.
I'll send you pictures.
Yeah. Fabian is a new kid in the department, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And he showed us his fashion designs, the runway
Yep,
material.
runway.
And the rest of us who all have 20, 30 years of sewing experience went, yeah, he didn't expect that. We were like, oh my God. Wow, amazing.
Thank
so,
you.
you know, we're both fans of the machine. Take it out for a spin. I think you'll be impressed and positively impressed. So thank you for joining us. And we will be, the link, by the way, for the voucher will be in the comments. So make sure you check it out there. And we'll see you next time, whether it's Bernette, Bernina, or both.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for joining.